Right, so moving on. So the next topic would be functions and built-in functions for PHP. So next, maybe we'll try a built-in function called count, right? Oh yeah, we already did cover the count. So basically, it will count how many elements an array has. But let's try checking what will be the output for this array. So as you can see, this array is a multi-dimensional array. Okay, let's add an horizontal rule, HR, and we'll try to echo and then count and then $C. So this variable again is an array, but it's a multi-dimensional array. So let's try to save it and check it. Okay, so it seems that it did return a value. It gave us 4. So let's try to check. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the count function will return the number of elements an array has, but since this is multidimensional, so it seems that it returned the first level of elements. So it doesn't need, or it doesn't mean, it doesn't matter if it's another array inside an array. So as long as it it does count the first level only, and it disregards the what do you call that, the second level, or if it's an array or not. So there you have it. So the count function still does work for multidimensional array, but it only counts the first level. Okay. So of course, if we're going to try the this array, this one, so it does still it returns 4, because it does have 4 elements. The next is the array push. So array push basically adds new value at the last at the end of the array. So the function is this one. So we need to push it. And for the array push, we need to have the first argument. We need to assign an array. So like for example, this one is array. And we need, after that, we can actually add a second, third argument as the value. For example, this one, and this one, and even this one. So what comes after the first argument is it doesn't matter how many times you add it. So as long as you supply the first one, and maybe the second argument is required. So if we're going to check this, so again it will add this to the end of the array, these 3 arguments. So it does. So right, so before it has 4 elements, but when we do array push, we added 3 elements, so that means it returns what do you call that, 7 elements. So instead of displaying the number of elements, so let's use var dump. So var dump is another built-in function, and what it does is basically display the information about a certain variable. So if you do this, you'll see something like this. So what it tells us, that the variable is an array with 7 elements, and it also displays the value for each element. Like for example, the first element where the address is 0, so it shows us the value 1, this one, and it is an integer, while the second element is also an integer where the value is 2. The third one is integer, which is the value 3, and fourth is a string, this one. Oh no, sorry, the fifth, right? The fifth. So the fifth element shows us it's a string with the length of 4, so meaning 4 letters. And on the sixth element, it gives us a string as well with a length of 4. But on the seventh element, it does gives us a boolean where the value is true. So that's the var_dump. However, there is another one, which is printr. I actually prefer to use var_dump than printr because it does gives us an extra information about the variable. But nonetheless, we could still use printr, and it gives us something like this. There you go. As you can see, it only tells us that it's an array, but it doesn't gives us the length of the array, right? Unlike var_dump. And for the elements or the value for each element, it doesn't gives us what type of value is this. It doesn't tell us if it's a integer, boolean, or string, and so on. So that's why I do prefer var_dump. There you go. So another way or alternative for us to do insert an element at the last at the end of the array is by basically doing this. So we call the variable, and we just add an empty bracket like this, and we just assign whatever value that you want. Let's say to make it obvious, let's add a string. So let's say hello world, like that. This is the same as doing an array push, but there's no functions that we need to call. So just doing this, and then we can actually add an element at the end of the array. So let's try to refresh that, and as you can see on the 8th element, we do have a string called hello world, and it gives us the number of characters the string has, right? But of course, if we do want to override a certain element, so we just have to specify the address of the element. Like for example, this one on the 4th element, we could just do this 3. Again, the array index starts from 0. Okay, so let's refresh that. Take note, that's the 4th element, or the index 3. Refresh that, and there you have it. The 4th element, or the address 3, was overridden, and now the value is a string. So that's again, PHP is a loose type language, so you don't need to declare the type for a certain variable. So you could even change the type during on declaration, or even during runtime. So these two again is for adding new value at the end of the array. I mean this one, right? Right. So this one is the same as doing this one by calling the array push. But what I did earlier is this is how we override a certain value on a certain element. Let's say 44. The next is array pop. So array pop, array array pop. So array pop is a function again. And for the array pop, what it does is it removes and return the last element of an array. Okay, so for example, we're going to use so let's try to comment out this so it won't distract us from our result. Okay, so array pop again, it removes and returns the last element of an array. So if we're going to check this array A, variable A has 4 elements, and the last element has the value of 3. So if we're going to use that as an argument, so array pop $A, so it will remove and return the last element. So meaning 3 will be removed, and at the same time it will be returned. But what we are doing now, we are assigning anything from a variable. But let's try to see what happens. Okay, so again, the value was 1, 2, 2, and 3. So what we have right now after we do the array push is we have 1, 2, and 2, right? But if we're going to assign a certain what if we need to retrieve the item that we have removed? So we have to assign it to a variable, and maybe we could do display it so that it tells us what value was removed. So called variable, so remove, so this one will be assigned the value that we removed. So refresh that. Okay, so as you can see, it returned the value 3, which is the last element or last value of the array. The next is sort. Maybe we could add it here. So let's do sort. So sort. So basically, it sort our elements in an array. So let's try to assign again the variable A, and let's add a horizontal rule so that it tells us apart, and we do a var dump. Okay, let's refresh it, and as you can see, it does it was already sorted out, but let's try to let's change the value so that it tells us if it does done its work. Okay, so this time we use 10, 12, and 3. So let's try to, so basically it will remove the last element, right? So this one, the 3, and then if we're going to sort this, it should have only it should only be resorting 3 elements. So let's do that. Refresh, and 1, 2, no, it doesn't seem to work. Okay, so but we'll try to do this instead. Okay, let's see what will happen, and it's true. Sort. Okay, let's try it again. so it doesn't seem to show up the value that we have. Okay. Okay, maybe we'll try to add a different array so that it will just to make it more clear. Okay, so for now, C 331480. Let's try that. C and C. Okay, so we have on the first element it's 0, right? 0, this one. The second element is 1, and yes, we have it. Third element it's 4, yes, and the last one is 44. So what happened would be use the array A. Okay, so let's try it again, A, and let's try to investigate. Fresh 2 and 4. Okay, so I might have been okay. So it seems to be sorting well. I may have mislooked the values, but it does, right? So there's no problem actually. So the first the value was 10, 12, and 2, and then the 3 was removed, and it seems that yes, it does. Yeah, it did sort the values. Okay, so I may have mislooked the result earlier. Okay, so anyway, so that's how we use sort. So it will sort the values in ascending order. Okay, so that's sort. The next is R sort. I'll just comment this, and I'll just copy this, and we do R sort. So what it does is sort an array in descending order. So that's R sort. So meaning it will become from highest to lowest. Okay, so let's try this. So as you can see here, the highest value is 33, so that's the first one to show up. 4, yes, 1, yes, and 0. So that's our sort. Okay, so maybe in the future, if you might want to work on ordering your values, or if you need to rank certain values, then that will be fine. So you need to use R sort or sort. Next is set. This one is set. So what it does, it will check if the variable exists and has a value. Okay, so like for example, you need to use var_dum. So var_dum. So let's check if there is a variable called x. X. Okay, then refresh it, and it does. We have a variable of x. So let's try to check. Yes, this one. Yeah, so we have a variable of x. So isSet is very important. So before we need to use a certain variable, so we have to check first if it really does exist. Although unlike in Java or C#, it's you will it will tell you if it does by of course by if your compilation is returned successfully. So you'll know that the variable really does exist. But since in PHP it's an interpreted language, so it will only your codes will only be executed line by line. So it's best to, if before you use a certain variable, you need to check if it really does exist. So let's try triple x. Right? So it does return a value, because what will happen if you use a variable that does exist? So let's say a y or g equals to plus 1. So take note that this variable doesn't exist. So if we're going to do that without declaring and initializing a variable, so you will see a warning error here. So, although a warning, your program will still work if we encountered a warning error. So it says that variable x is 5. So that's why you will have to check if is set, then we're going to use variable x. So the error went away because we check first before we use a certain variable. We check first if the x is really does exist. So if it does, like this, then we get an result or two. But we don't actually get a result from this because this is just an expression, and we didn't echo out or printed out the value. Okay, or we can, right? So echo g, and we have a value of 2. So that is set. Next is unset. So unset basically just it what do you call that? It removes a certain variable. So like for example, we need to remove a certain element, an array. So we could use unset. So like this one on variable c. So let's try to separate them again. So let's do unset. Let's say a certain element. So c unset. Let's unset the third element, and then we're gonna do a var dump to see the current value of the array. So let's do that. So before we have the values 33, 4, and 1 and 0. Okay, first, so because basically we remove the fourth element, right? So by specifying the index 3, meaning it is we are removing the fourth element, right? Since the index starts from 0, so this means 0, 1, 2, and 3. So in this case, we have removed the last element, and what we have here at the last line, when we do unset, we remove the last element here. So right now, this is what we are seeing. Or we could just unset the whole array like this, and then there you go. We have unset the whole array. So it returned an undefined warning error. So it says that the variable c doesn't exist, and we do have a null. So it did return a null value here. So that's unset. So another one is empty. So empty. So as the function says, it's straightforward. So it does check if the value doesn't have any element. I mean, doesn't have any value. So let's check empty LRC. Okay, so let's just gonna check if the um, let's try to comment this out. So let's check if the array C is empty. Okay, yes, so it does return true since the value at the same time, right? At the same time doesn't exist. So that's the empty. So it doesn't exist and it doesn't have a value. But let's try a variable with an empty string. I mean null string, right? So let's do t, refresh it, and it does return true since it is actually empty. But what if we're going to add 1, a string of 1, and it returns false because it does have a value. So that's how empty works. Okay. What else? Let me check here. Okay. So let's try to remove all of this to make us clean start. So we have discussed array earlier, but there are also what we call super global arrays. So these super global arrays are built-in arrays which you don't need to declare, and PHP will make it available for you. So like for example, we have $server. So server is a super global array that contains information about our server, our PHP interpreter, and so on. So if we're going to check this, then we will have this information. So it does look messy. So we'll try to use an HTML element which is pre. So pre is an HTML element that does read white spaces, so that's new line, tabbing, and so on. So there you go. Since var_dump will return certain escape characters like new line, tabs, so it does help if we're going to wrap it inside the pre element. And there you have it. So it is an associative array that contains information about our servers, about PHP, and even certain extensions. So we have here HTTP host, so it does return localhost. What else? Path, right? So it does return certain paths for our systems. So I think this is related to the path of our Windows, of my Windows machine, right? System root, Windows directory, yeah, this one, server name, and server ADD or the server address. So if we're going to execute this in your hosting or your free hosting, this value will change. So it will be useful later on if you want to trace or tag the IP address of your visitors. Server port, yeah, so that's 80 by default, that's 80, and so on. So that's the super global array server. But if you do want to extract a certain value, so of course you'll have to use the index, which is an associative array. So like this one. So request URI, so that's it will return test. So it will be, so it's a string after our domain name. So if you're going to set it like this, so it's not it won't. So I'm sorry. So like this. Like that. So it will return request URI. So these are query string right after the question mark. So we might cover this in a later topics. So that's how we use server. So server attdr later. So it does return the IP address, and this is the default address for our localhost. What else? Session. So session. So right now we don't have any session right now because we did not call the session start. So session start, it's a function that, as the name says, it will start the session. And sessions are used for if you want certain values to be remembered or are accessible all throughout your pages. And sessions expires at a certain time. So if you are planning to use this for a long time, or if you are planning to use a certain value for a long time or a long period of time, then you might, a session might not be fit for that. So that's it. So we're going to check this, and we have an empty array. So again, if you're going to use session, so you'll have to call session start. And let's try to add a session. So session, and it's an associative array. So you might want to use a certain value to for you to remember it. So let's say the student ID. So this one, let's say 2011 and yes, so it this array element was added to our session. So how are we going to use this on again, sessions are remembered all throughout your pages or your website. So if we're going to create another file, let's see, test.php, and if we're going to open it, and let's try to echo or display echo $session, and remember we have these the ID or the associative session ID, student ID. And if we're going to check it, so again, this is from index.php, and if we're going to visit this file, so we'll have to change it to test.php. But we have this error. So it says that undefined global variable session, and what we're trying to access doesn't exist. So this error, it is because we did not first call session start. So again, any page or any file, if we're going to use a session, you'll have to call session start. So with that, and we do have this value. So what if we are going to use a certain element that it doesn't exist, like this one, like that? So obviously we are going to have see an error. So again, that's where the is set is good for this job. So is set, and then call this session, and we didn't get any error because we first check if a certain element really does exist, and if it doesn't, then it won't do anything. So in our case, let's change it to session, and there you go, we did receive another back. Okay, that's for session again. But if you're going to remove all of the sessions, for maybe for a security reason, like for example after the user logs out, then we could call session destroy. So let's add another file. Let's say logout, no? Logout. And let's do the function called session destroy. And we're going to access it in this URL, logout.php. And so far we have this error. So trying to destroy an initialize session. So we do actually have to call session start for that. Okay. So if we're going back to index, to the main page, well, it wasn't destroyed. Nice thing. Okay, again, log out. And let's check it again. Let's use this, copy it, and we have, and we still do have this values. So paste that. So maybe I'm doing something wrong here. Okay, so it seems that it's still there. Okay. Okay, so what happened here? Session destroy, start, and session destroyed. Okay, let's dump our session. Well, yes, it does. It does shows an empty array. Let's still, but okay, yeah, okay. So yeah, I get it now. Since we are assigning another value to our session, so this makes our session being refreshed or being added again. So let's try to create, let's say on test, right? So let's go to test. But first we have to destroy all of our session. Oops. Okay, log out. Wait. So log out, yes, it's empty now. And let's go to test, where it will display our session here. So going to refresh. There you go. So it's gone now. So that's the purpose of session destroy, to delete all of our session in the array session. Alright, so next, another super global variable is what we call post, or first get, right? So get is an HTTP method where it will extract values from the URL. So specifically the query strings. So for example, if we have a URL that looks like this, localhost slash, let's say, index.php question mark, let's say id equals to 20, and name is equals to John. So our URL here has what we call the query string. So these are query strings, and these query strings we can actually attach or add variables in our URL in the form of a query strings, like here. So we have here the ID is equals to 20 and the name is equals to John. So this form of method is what we call the get. So for us to extract these values, we need to use the super global called $_get. And for us to extract this, we will have to call out the name here, which is the variable here, and put it as an associative array like this. So if we're going to print this, so obviously we will be getting an error here, undefined array key ID, because in our current URL it doesn't have this query string. So if we're going to copy this and paste it in our URL, then we did get a value of 20 here, because 20, it belongs to the variable in the query string called ID. So same thing, if we're going to use name instead of ID, then we're going to get the value of John. So that's the get, right? And another HTTP method, get, and this one is the HTTP method, post. So posts are basically available in an element called form. So get again is available from a query string. So method post comes from the form element, and we do have to set the attribute to post, the attribute method post. And for us to be able to send data to the server, we have to tell what action. So where are we going to send these data? So the element action is the attribute action is responsible for that, and by giving an empty value, this means that we're going to send it on the current file, so in this file. So in HTML we do have an input and a type. So a type, it can be a text field, a checkbox, radio box, and so on. So we could simply put here text, and the name is very important. Again, this will be what we are going to use as an associative index. So this time, let's say last name, and the other element is submit. So submit it will look like a button, and this will become the trigger when we are going to send the post data to the server. So value, the attribute value is the text that we're going to see inside our button. So let's say send me. So we're going to refresh it. Then we will have a text field here and a value. The next is we are going to catch this whatever the user types. So if we're going to type here, let's say Rizal, then this value will be catch or retrieve using our post. So let's say echo our post, and the element, the index here, which is corresponds to the name attribute. So if we have the name last name here, or XYZ, then that will be also the index for the array post. So if we're going to refresh this, so error echo expecting on line 11. Line 11, okay, so we didn't added a semicolon there. So refresh it again. So it says here warning undefined array key XYZ, right? That is because we haven't yet submitted this data to the server. So if we're going to click this button, and this time it does show the last name result. So John again is from the query string. Let me comment this out. Okay. So refresh. If we're going to refresh it, we will receive this pop-up. So it does tells us if we want to resend the data from the previous form. Okay, so it does. So we have now the result here. So to fix the error earlier, to fix this error again, so we'll have to use isSet again. The function is set. So this function again checks whether a certain variable or array does exist. So we have to use the index name. So we're going to refresh this. So we didn't get the error initially, right? Since we do have the error checking first. So if we're going to type whatever here, then it does return the whatever value we have here. So that's the post. But although we can also, instead of using method post here, we could do get. And take note, or try to take a look here in the URL. Like for example, we're going to type this anything here, and we're going to click the send. You'll notice here that the name, which is XYZ, and then the value of this one is attached to our URL. So if we're going to set the method get, this information or this data will be appended in our query string. So again, let's say John. Then you'll see in the URL that we have a query string with the variable XYZ, and the value is John. Okay, so that's again for the get. And you'll notice that there are no value for we didn't get any value from the post, since these information are added in the get variable instead. So we're going to change that and refresh, and we do get a value of John. But what if we do both, right? It doesn't matter if it came from a get or a post. So we do underscore request. There you go. So request acts both as a get and a post. There you go. So we're going to change post here and refresh it and type anything here, and it does return the value regardless if it came from get or it came from post. Okay, so that's again the HTTP. So that's for $underscore request. So both get and post. Okay, so that's it for now. So please leave a question or a comment if you have any questions. Okay, so thank you.